Welcome to today's webinar. It's an intro webinar, number 2, to the SueWrongdoers.com website and processes. This is pre-launch training information to give you an outline and an idea of what Sue Wrongdoers will be about. And hopefully there's enough information within these introductory webinars so you can go out and start doing your own research and start doing your own work with it. But Sue Wrongdoers will be in-depth and with more detail so that you can go through the process with more certainty, more clarity, and with some support from people who are also doing it. And looking forward to compiling the information from different jurisdictions so that when people come on board later down the road, the processes and court rules and the regulations and the paperwork and everything that's beneficial to anybody making a claim in a specific jurisdiction is easily laid out for them so that we can have more and more and more people making claims, because it is those claims which is really your power to make change in the system. And this notice read all officials. We trusted them. They lied, they stole, they harmed people, and they'll pay for their wrongs. Only if the individuals who have been harmed are willing to take action. And that's what discovering how you can sue official and corporate wrongdoers for dollars at SueWrongdoers.com. We're not about making money, we're about empowering you to use the legal system to get the fair and legitimate compensation through an honorable, lawful process to make you whole for the wrongs that you have suffered at the hands of whatever official or corporate wrongdoer. This is not any type of movement or anything like that. It is merely a support mechanism to help you understand what your legal rights are with regards to accessing the courts, and the proper courts, not the fiction courts that most people unfortunately have experience with. So there will be a couple of slides from this presentation which are similar. There have been some minor updates, but the majority of this presentation is different than the intro number 1. So basically, the society rules. Women and men are private persons at common law who give their trust to others. Private persons being the legal term for a man at common law in the common law structure. Even common law is a fiction. It's a set of rules that men agree to play by in order to have, quote-unquote, a civilized society where your disputes are settled in an honorable, reasonable, respectful fashion instead of, dueling guns at 12 paces or meeting on the battlefield or whatever. So you have to understand the context that we're in here. Government officials, police, judges, politicians all have lawful authority given to them by the trust of the people, which are private persons, only if they have a lawful oath of office on file. There are people who are presently operating as if they are lawful authority, lawful officials, and they do not have the oath of office which they are bound by law to have in order to give them the authority of the office they allege to hold. This unfortunately is far too common and appears to be in most places at most times. When the trust is broken that we have given to them, or authority is falsely claimed because they have no oath, the people must take action and hold the wrongdoers to account. It is your duty and your responsibility. There is a reciprocal duty to having freedom, and that is your duty to help to ensure that the freedom is maintained for yourself and others. You have a duty and a responsibility to keep the peace. Your duty to keep the peace includes reporting and acting as a witness against wrongdoers. If you see an action or are the victim of an action against yourself or your family, it's up to you to report it. It's up to you to go through the proper processes to make sure that that wrongdoer is identified and held to account. And also, you have that duty and responsibility to act as a witness against them in a court process so that justice and compensation can be made to the harmed parties. Now, we've all seen the movies where, you've got the bad guy who's a killer and people are afraid of testifying against him as a witness because they're afraid of getting killed too. Well, nobody testifies and he gets away because nobody's willing to be a witness because they're afraid of repercussions, and unfortunately rightfully so in those situations. At the lower levels, not a problem at all. Everybody should pursue these reports. A wrongdoer is anyone, any official, anyone who causes harm or threat of harm to person or property. And we're using person in a neutral term, which is actually the correct interpretation. Person is not always a corporate fiction or a legal entity. It is can be a man or a woman at common law when properly identified as a private person. Context is everything. And property. Property is everything. Your rights are considered property at law. Your body is considered property at law. All of the stuff you own is property at law, etc. So really, there is only your body and everything that attaches to it, and everything that flows from it is property. A wrongdoer is also an officer who breaks their rules, their oath, acts, regulations, or ethics of their office. They have acted outside of their office and therefore privately. So a wrongdoer at common law is anyone who causes harm or threat of harm to person or property. But there's also a wrongdoer within statute law, because these are statute-created offices, and those statute-created offices have their statute rules, regulations, and acts. And when the people holding those offices break the rules which they are bound by, then you can hold them to account for it, administratively within the office and also privately. We can learn to use the law. It is the people's responsibility to keep the government and corporate officers in check. This has been stated multiple times by officials in various organizations, and we have the opportunity to do that when we use the law court systems, which are basically sound, and they have just been hijacked, in my opinion. There are other people who have that exact same opinion. I was watching a recording of a fellow teaching about the court systems, and he said it in a way which just rephrases the way I talk about it, which I found very concise. And he says that they can operate in a private courtroom in their private jurisdiction, private bar attorney courts, and they can abuse the heck out of us there. But they can't abuse us in a proper court of law. And that's why they always move us from a common law court, which they're actively trying to prevent us accessing. It does exist, it does function. They can work it when they choose to or when they're forced to, and they move us off into private courts. And that's my reference to hijack. Some people call them pirates. Sure, whatever works. But the idea is there is a lawful court system and lawful court process which they are not using and avoid using, although they have the appearance of using it to make us all believe we're properly being treated in a proper court. And that's just not the case. Anybody who's been to court can attest to that. Now, the system of law is supposed to be the guardian of truth, honor, and justice to facilitate a peaceful, prosperous society. It still is from time to time operating in that fashion, and can be more so. We must do our duty to reclaim the system of law from the hijackers. This really is the bottom line, learning how to use the law and force it into the proper venue and not be taken off into some other jurisdiction court. So it's time for accountability. Your mission, should you choose to accept it, is to get ready and know the law. Many of you have been studying the law for a long time in varieties of law, and it's get set on how to complain. And there's two types of complaints. There's a complaint into the administrative superior line of chain of command of somebody who's a wrongdoer, and there's an administrative, that's what the administrative complaint is, and it's not just whining to your friends around the water cooler. And then the final step is to go and how to take your claim to get dollar remedies to the common law court system. There are presently common law actions underway, and so it is being in full test mode, and they are actively working to prevent it. But we'll see where it all goes, because it definitely is there to be used if we can put the pressure on the right way. So what is Sue Wrongdoers? The idea here is to teach and facilitate the awareness of your power of complaints and claims to hold government and corporate officials accountable. It's your power, and it's your power to use or lose because you don't use it. We've been taught not to complain. One of the lessons that I learned when I was in court the first time doing a trial, I walked out of there and I said to myself and to other people, I've got to learn to be more objectionable. Not in a negative way, but when something happens I don't like, I have to learn to object to it. I have to speak up and say, no, that's not right. We've been taught not to speak against our superiors, against our bosses, against police, who supposed superiors, excuse me, and teachers and so on, and they've got us trained not to speak up and to complain in the moment. And therefore people go off and complain to their buddies but never complain to anybody else. So you have to utilize that power, recognize you have it. Step-by-step simplified processes on using lawful process, what to do and how to do it. This is not something new, this is not theory, this is what is already published and available to you, but in most cases people don't know where to find it, don't know how to understand it because it's not written in clear, concise manners, and they want some help getting through it. So the idea is that we're just teaching you how to use what is available to you. If you understand your power, your rights, and the correct process, you can get justice. You have power you don't recognize or understand you have. You have rights which you are learning about, and you don't have the correct process. They win because we haven't understood the process. We haven't taken the time. We've been afraid to even go and learn about the process because we've been taught not to go to court and not to trust lawyers. And there's lots of good reasons for that, but if you want to use the courts, you have to learn how to use the courts properly and how to use lawyers properly. They can serve a purpose in specific ways if you control them properly. They do fear, they're actively in fear about what is going on worldwide when people are complaining and standing up and learning their rights and learning about the law. People have been effective at times, but ineffective a majority of the time. And they know it's just a matter of time until people come with well-evidenced, clearly drafted complaints and claims holding them to account. This is exposure. This is shining the light of their wrongdoings on them individually through the administrative process to their superiors and to the public through common law court process. So it is bringing out into the light the evil that dwells, and evil doesn't like that. And there is evil in these places when people are, taking people's children for no reason and drugging people and stealing their houses and property and so on. As far as I'm concerned, that's just plain evil. What is Su Wrongdoers? It's minimal to none legal theories. It's using proven principles of law. It's using proven principles of court process. As I said, most of this is available to you if you go search it out for yourself, but most people don't know even how to start to do that or to understand it. Again, that's what we're going to try and do, is make it easier to find it and understand it. And we're going to be trying to give the information in such a way that it's written and spoken to in a respectful and honorable manner to you as an example of how to deal with the court system and even lawyers and anybody in a respectful and honorable manner. Never give them an excuse to abuse you, because that's what they're looking for. They goad you to get angry, they goad you to get on the defense, and you have, most cases, nothing to defend and nothing to get angry about. They're the ones who are involved in a criminal action and criminal activity, and their fear of being exposed is one of the things that we have to be aware that they're going to do. Intimidation and threats and even jail in order to try and stop people from actively pursuing their rights. I've seen this multiple times personally, as well as transcripts. I know a lot of people who've been through that type of stuff, and it's up to them to hold the individuals who did that to them to account. Otherwise, nothing happened. Expectation. Expectation of a common law court of record and honorable treatment in response. By you being respectful and honorable in your presentation on your paperwork, as well as standing in court or speaking to any officer in any situation, right? You're going to be setting the standard that they're going to have to rise up to meet. And you need to go in with an expectation of a common law court of record and honorable treatment in response, and object in the moment when you don't get it, and object by filing a complaint when it appears like they're playing tricks with you, etc. We have complaint letters that have had 180-degree turnaround responses within 12 hours with judges and court clerks. So who can I sue, you say? Well, who harmed you? CRA, IRS? Absolutely. If they're not following their policies and procedures, they're acting without lawful authority, they don't have oaths on file, they're doing things they're not supposed to be doing, absolutely. Police, there's unfortunately too many examples today of police acting like they're just rogue, and they're fully liable for all those actions, and they need to be held to account as an example to others that if you act like this, there are people out there who will hold you to account. Judges, same thing, especially if they don't have an oath of office, which again appears to be the dominant structure. They're 100% personally liable. Period. End of story. They have no immunity. They only have immunity when they're acting in good faith and acting lawfully. And as soon as they do either of those things contrary to those standards, they are 100% liable. Accountants, oh my goodness. How many times have I read about some poor individual who gets charged with tax evasion and they had an accountant set them up? Gosh darn, how come when you hire an expert, pay him a lot of money to do your tax structure, and it turns out to be something that the tax man doesn't like and thinks is illegal, you end up getting charged for it and going to jail for it. That doesn't make any sense to me. They tell me do your due diligence and go get professional advice, and yet the professionals are not liable for putting you into jeopardy and so on. People aren't going after accountants like they should. Lawyers, same thing, absolutely. These guys are acting, especially prosecutors, are acting in many ways that are completely unlawful, and it's evidenced by the paperwork they're filing to the courts and in many other ways. They have a complaint process to complain about a lawyer. You complain about somebody who's licensed to operate, and it's a mandatory investigation into the circumstance and the evidence of the circumstance, and they get a record if they're found to have had any wrongdoing, and they can lose their license. They can make it difficult for them to get insurance for their practice, etc. There's all sorts of benefits to you and to society to get these wrongdoers out of whatever practice that they're practicing. Politicians, how many times have we heard a politician lie and not get held to account, or not doing their job properly in various other ways? And by the way, the politicians are just the front men. Behind them are the civil servants who are the deputy ministers. They're the long-term civil servants who are there as the ones who really know how things work and basically just tell the politicians what to sign. And so the knowledge base really is in the civil service and in the deputy minister, not the minister who is a politician there temporarily. So that's another level. Corporate executives. For too long, corporations have been getting off the hook with regards to the fact we have a lawful legal duty to get as much profit for our shareholders as possible, and that's why we did this. And everybody goes, oh well, they have a legal duty to get as much profit. Well, if they've broken the law in the process of getting that profit, they're liable, and they don't have the protections of their office or the limited liability of a corporation if they are found to have acted unlawfully. Again, you only have protections of any office as long as you act in good faith and don't break the law. So this is all about gathering the evidence on all of these characters and pursuing investigations and prosecutions and complaints. Bank employees. Right now, banks are actively preventing access to private banks. They're also private bank accounts. It's there in Canada, anyways. It's there in the legislation, and they're actively preventing access to that. And they are also giving access to things that they shouldn't give access to with CRA when CRA sends a demand letter and so on. And some banks are okay, and some bank managers are okay. It's again the employees individually within the bank who, guess what? If you go in asking for something that they're not comfortable with, who are they going to call? They're going to call the legal department. Well, guess what? The legal department needs to be on the hook for the actions that are taken on on their advice, etc. Court registry staff. If you have problems with court registry, they're not accepting your paperwork or whatever. Again, we've had this happen where common law court paperwork was refused at the registry. A complaint letter was drafted to the superior. The next day, first thing in the morning, that court registry staff member contacted the individual and said, please come back, I'll accept your court filing. Okay, so again, it's a simple process. It's a basic principle process. Church officers, I don't care, again, where they are in the church, whether it's the deacon or the bishop or whatever the heck you call your various levels of authority within there, they have their own court system, specifically and especially within the Catholic structure. They have their own court system. Anyone can make a complaint into their court system about the actions of any Catholic, never mind somebody who's actually in the office associated with the church. So they have a private legal system within their structure, and it's parallel to the civil one, and it's also outside the civil one. So you have additional remedies there, and you can also go civilly into the civil courts with regards to charging any churches that are registered as corporations. And almost every church is a publicly registered corporation, and therefore they're all officers of corporations, and they can all be held liable by civil law as well. And then when I say civil law, I'm saying that in distinction to criminal law, where you have a private citizen taking an individual to court for a civil monetary damage process. And that civil process is not Roman civil law. And there is a distinction there. It's confusing, and I think that's part of the reason for it. So you have to end your fear of politics and religion and courts and legal systems and police, because it really is our fear of these people and of these authority figures that makes us think we can't complain about them, that we can't take process against them. If they're acting illegally, we have to recognize and remember that they're all just men and women doing a job, quote unquote, with lots of rules, limitations, and liabilities on how they must do that job. They have all their internal rules as a part of that office, and then they have the common law rules of do no harm and threat of harm. And so you can get them on both levels with regards to if you have a properly evidenced case, you can hold them to account. Because their liability really only begins when you report, complain, and claim that their actions broke their rules or the law. And this is what's been going on for far too long, is people don't think they can, don't know how, and so they don't complain. And then these wrongdoers just go on their merry way doing whatever the heck they want, because when nobody complains about what you're doing wrong, like, there's really no rules, and there's no punishment, and there's no accountability. So it really is up to us to understand what those rules and accountabilities are and evidence them, report them. So you have to learn that you can, and how to do so, how to object in the moment. Like I said, I walked out of court going, I gotta learn to be more objectionable, because I would walk out going, I should have said something about that at the time. I wanted to, but I was afraid to, right? I don't know how many times I've had people say to me, well, I don't want to get the judge mad at me. Well, guess what? If you try anything with regards to standing up for your rights, they're already mad at you. And that being mad at you is a good sign, because that means they're trying to intimidate you off the point. You're actually doing something right. That's why they're getting mad at you. And if you object, you basically inform them that their behavior of anger in the courtroom is disrespectful, unprofessional, and contrary to the ethical mandate that guides the performance and the behaviors of a judge. We had a complaint letter issued against a judge, 180 degrees. Letter went in the evening, next morning in front of that judge, polite as can be, nice as pie, compared to the week before where he's yelling and screaming and threatening. Happened again just recently here in Port Coquitlam. Number of complaints went in, and the two witnesses who saw this judge perform previously, I went and saw this most recent one, so I got to see firsthand what was going on. And they walked out of the court and they go, that's a totally different judge. Same guy, but totally different judge. He was very nice, and he was speaking in a quiet paced tone, and he was educating and providing guidance, and he was repeating the guidance over and over to make sure it was understood. And these two witnesses from the previous times go, last time he was yelling, he's screaming, he's just like getting red in the face and everything. And today it's like, who was that? And that's the power of complaints. They need to know that you aren't going to put up with it, and that you put their behavior on the record for everybody else to see. And it can be a loss of jurisdiction. So you can object in the moment, and you can administratively complain through processes which are outlined within the acts and rules and regulations that they provide, and how to complain about one of our little public servants or officers. This is how you do it into our structure. Now, do you leave it there for a long time? No, because you move on to how to make lawful claims, because they have a limited time to reply and investigate, and you move right to the lawful claim if you don't get remedy through that process. And there's an outline of that in seminar intro number 1. You need to be empowered with the beliefs to be successful with this process and this idea of being able to object and sue. You really need to believe that you can complain, that you can make a claim, that you can object face to face with one of these authority type of figures. You really believe that you have to believe that you can, and that you're not going to die when it happens. You're not going to get beat up when it happens. You're not going to get thrown in jail when it happens. Are there instances when that happens? Well, yeah, but in many instances, the individual spoke up in a rude, disrespectful manner and gave the authority figure an excuse to exercise their authority all over them. And so when you do it in a respectful, honorable fashion, again, you're setting the tone, and you're less likely to have that type of situation. And you need to know that making a complaint will actually make a difference, because many people believe, oh, it doesn't matter, even if I complain, nothing will happen, so why even bother? And as soon as you do that, you've absolved yourself of your responsibility and your duty, and you've let them off the hook. Well, you fail. You fail to do what you're supposed to do in order to help maintain the peace in your life and in society in general. So you have to believe it will make a difference, and the more people that do it, the bigger the difference it will make. One person can make change, it just takes a lot longer, and it's a lot higher risk for them. When lots of people do it, things change very quickly. And you have to believe you have a chance of success, that it will lead to some successful outcome. So do we have examples of this? Absolutely. Do you have to go on faith a little bit that this is the way it will be? Absolutely. And you have to know that the more people that do this, the faster change will happen and the more things will correct, because this is about forcing them into self-correction. When enough people speak up and enough people take action, they will self-correct until everybody goes back to sleep, forgets about their rights, forgets about standing up for their rights, forgets about holding them accountable, and they'll go back doing it again. Because unfortunately, that's what happens over and over again, historically speaking. So what are some examples of success with this speaking up and going against the system? Well, the end of legal slavery in the Commonwealth. It was legal in England for the slave trade to exist and to actually own slaves, etc. And it was a multi-year battle in order to actually end the legal slave trade. And there's a good movie about this, which is Amazing Grace, and it's the story about the end of the slave trade, and to see what they went through, the people who were against the slave trade, the amount of time and the stress and the public ridicule for how could you believe that it's not right to own slaves and to trade slaves? Of course it's all right. Well, that's a justification, and it's also a few other things, but it did happen, and that was a big one. I think it was a real big one. The end of apartheid in South Africa, legal apartheid. Whatever still exists there, I don't know, but it was legal for a long, long time, and eventually it ended. The details of how it ended are less relevant than the fact that it eventually enough people spoke out against it that it did end. And there's a line from a movie, Searching for Sugar Man, and it's about a musician who became a hero in South Africa, and he was virtually unknown in North America. And his albums in South America became the theme song, the rallying cries for South Africans who wanted to end apartheid, and he became a hero. And so Searching for Sugar Man is a good movie about that whole idea of ending something like apartheid. And there was one line in there, South African fellow said, until we heard the lyrics of this song, we didn't know we could stand up and say no to authority. And think about that for a second. That's where a lot of people are at. They don't know, they don't believe, they don't understand that they actually can stand up and say, no, that's not right. Stop it. And we need to get to that particular point. The collapse of the USSR, not necessarily because people stood up. Again, lots of reasons why it collapsed, and who knows what went on behind the scenes. The point here is society kept on going. They still had governmental structures working. They still had court systems working. I mean, yes, there's a transition period, but it wasn't the end of the world, and things moved on. So even if you challenge a structure, it doesn't mean the world's going to end. Like, what just happened in Scotland and England with regards to the vote for separation. The English, wanting to keep Scotland under their control, went into the fear tactic mode of, the world will end for Scotland if you separate. You'll die financially and all that sort of stuff. And then they used the classic politician tactic right at the end of, if you stay, we'll give you all these benefits. Well, that's, not fighting fair, really. And so anyways, unfortunately, Scotland, 55% of Scotland decided to stay, which also surprised me. There's only a little over 5 million people in Scotland. There's almost that many in British Columbia. So not that big a place. The end of HST in British Columbia. This is a huge one. This is absolutely huge. It's recent history, and it's an absolute evidence of a law comes in, which everybody goes, oh, there's this law, there's this new tax, and HST replaced the PST, provincial sales tax, and GST, whatever the heck GST stands for, and into one combined tax. And every 90% of the population paid more tax as a result, and the corporations benefited with some benefits by having it as a combined tax. So somebody started a end the HST campaign, and they went through a referendum process, and they got it canceled. And at the end of the 5-year contract, which needed to be renewed in order for it to continue, it was ended and taken away. So can you actually end the tax that has been imposed? Absolutely. This is the power of the people to stand up and say no on a large scale with regards to even things like taxes, which, oh, you can't fight City Hall, nothing's certain but death and taxes. Oh, except for the HST, apparently. And this is a huge clue. It's a huge example, and I don't hear anybody talking about it and using it as a model. Snowden, NSA exposure, and all the changes. Okay, whatever you think about him, whether he's a good guy or bad guy for the exposure, personally, I think it was an absolutely right thing to do, an honorable thing to do. There was illegal, unlawful activity occurring. He exposed it, and he's treated like a criminal by the officialdom because the officialdom is embarrassed by the exposure. Isn't that just the way it goes for any whistleblower? And this, again, is part of the problem with whistleblowing, is that you are exposing yourself, and if you're on your own, it's not a good sign. But if a lot of people behind you, then what you've done in terms of exposing the truth becomes taken seriously, and real change happens. And that's what's happened with the Snowden release. 1960 civil rights movements, lots of changes because people stood up, lots of violence. Again, it's all about control. And if you want your rights, there's going to be, hell to pay. And today's hell is court processes by government agencies. You don't have to lose any blood in the streets and that type of thing. India independence from Britain, again, same basic idea. And another recent example, which is a fun one, Nanaimo City Council anti-Christian ruling. There's a news on, if you search for this, they actually, the council said, we're not going to rent a public facility to a Christian group because they're, homophobic and whatever else. And there was a big outcry, and the city council actually reversed their decision and ultimately paid damages to the seminar promoter for canceling the event and so on. So again, can any rule by any level of government be overturned by public outcry and then the wrongdoers be held to account? Absolutely, yes. Yes, absolutely. Hold everyone to account. All right, 3-step process described in webinar 1 is there. Learn the basics of using the legal system for your protection and the benefit of others. Again, keeping the peace is not just about you not breaking the peace. It's also about you being a protector of the peace when a wrongdoer has acted, in order to report them properly and also be a witness against them. And that benefits society as a whole, and that's the basic principle behind it. Take action with private notices, complaints, and claims. This will be the main focus of Sue Wrongdoers, covering the 3 steps, the basic process of the legal system, and how to take action with private notices, complaints, and claims. And again, you have a long list of anybody in the system, and always, always follow through. Without follow through, it's almost no point in starting, and in some cases can be damaging for starting. So you have to follow through. And many claims are, and many actions are being tainted by people doing things improperly, because people are going in with an abusive, aggressive, threatening attitude and manner. Anybody coming in with a similar complaint could be painted with the same brush. And anybody failing to follow through, it becomes a frivolous complaint process, and will taint other actions. So it's important to set a standard and operate to that standard for many reasons. It just makes sense. All right, learning to use the local courts. Go to your local courts and ask questions. Get sample documents. What does a complaint look like? These are public records, and you go to a court registry, they will usually go and photocopy somebody's complaint drafted by a lawyer, and you can use it as a sample. Do you copy it exactly? No, because it's drafted by a lawyer, and it probably has some problems with it. But the structure of the information and various other aspects are useful to make sure that you're doing things as effectively and cleanly as possible. Get how-to booklets. In British Columbia, when I first started in 1999, there was almost no how-to information, because so many lay litigants went through the system at the time that I was going through it. Subsequently, they've been forced by the volume of lay litigants coming through to do what they were supposed to have in place already, which was self-help material, guidance for lay litigants. And there's now very good lay litigant guidance material in British Columbia and many other jurisdictions as well. So get a hold of those how-to books. They're usually in BC well written and simply written. Review the court websites. You have a local court website. In British Columbia, we have the provincial court, which is a statute-created court. Interestingly enough, does not have a set of rules attached to it. Well, I guess it's a free-for-all then, because it's created by statute for statute offenses for statute entities. If you want to access the law, you need to be in the Supreme Court of British Columbia, which has a set of rules, and it also has a set of regulations and a set of forms, etc. All of those things need to be, you need to know where they are, and you need to refer to them. They're generally well written, they generally make sense, and they're just overwhelming when you first look at them. And that's one of the things we'll do with Su Wrongdoers, is walk you through how to look at these things so that you don't get overwhelmed, so you can quickly find what you're looking for, and not get distracted with all the other stuff that's in it that's not relevant to your situation. I actually had somebody from Nambia in Africa contact me through the website, and walked them through their statutes in like probably 20 minutes, and identified the key areas they needed to focus on when they had spent hours and hours and hours looking and not finding, because they didn't really know what to look for and didn't really know what it was when they saw it. So that's part of what will be the Su Wrongdoers process. So you got to find the Court Act rules and regulations that you're in your local jurisdiction and anywhere else you're going, whether it's a federal court or whatever. Seek out any self-help or free legal aid. There's a number of organizations in Vancouver with regards to self-help and free legal aid to various people for various circumstances. There's also national ones. Canadian Freedom Foundation, CFFR, is one organization that's a national one. So there are national organizations, provincial organizations, local organizations, which we can tap into for resources and potentially work with. Again, if we're properly structured with our evidence and our complaint, it makes it easier for them to see that, yes, it's something they can help with, and also possibly take it on. So to prepare things well is important for your own understanding, for the understanding of anybody who's going to potentially assist you, and for when you get to court. So you need to recognize that this is already happening. People are making complaints. Claims are being made even within the box. Canadian Senate investigations. This has been going on forever. You know, politicians at the trough abusing the rules to get more money, and so on and so forth. There are Canadian senators who have been investigated. They've been outed. They've lost their positions in the Senate. Now there's criminal charges pending, etc. So when these things start happening at the political level and at the police level and at the those public levels which are normally untouchable, something's happening where things are getting more serious, and they're actually holding people accountable. It may only be temporary, but this is the time to jump on the bandwagon and say, hey, they're actually getting serious about enforcing the rules and regulations against these positions of authority. So, let's jump on the bandwagon and report these other positions of authority because it's the thing to do now. And Alberta Premier resigns and then quits seat. So the Alberta Premier got found out for some wrongdoing with regards to finances and travel and stuff like that. And so she resigned from her position as Premier and went to be a backbencher. And then more stuff came out and it embarrassed her even more, and she quit her seat and left politics. That's what needs to happen on a large scale. And there are senators who have been making disclosures about, oops, I made some mistakes in my finances, here's a check for the money back. So they're correcting after the fact because they now see that everybody's getting investigated and they're next if they don't take care of it. Again, the criminals within the system will clean up their act because they see people are being held accountable. That's what needs to happen. Rob Ford? Yeah. Canadian. Yay. Well, he got investigated. He lost all his powers as mayor of the city of Toronto. And so again, you do stuff wrong, there's good evidence of it. Even after you deny it, there's good evidence of it. Eventually you'll get held accountable. Find and submit many more examples worldwide more and more often. Let's keep the momentum going. So if you want to submit to SueWrongdoers.com, info@SueWrongdoers.com, anything with regards to a government official, police officers being investigated, charged, convicted of anything with regards to official wrongdoing, let's start an archive. Because if you think about it, what people want is they want proof, they want evidence that it's really going to matter that I do this. It's really possible this is going to happen. And when they see that all of these officials are being investigated and prosecuted and convicted, again, they'll see the pattern, they'll see the possibility, they'll see that maybe something will happen if I complain about it in my situation. So it is part of the process of bringing people's belief levels up by providing the evidence that these complaints and claims will actually lead to some change. And why do it? Why complain? Well, your failure to complain is deemed consent to whatever wrong you were subject to. You don't say that you didn't want it, you didn't like it, you weren't happy with it. Well, you just consented to it as far as the wrongdoer is concerned, and they'll be welcome on your doorstep to come and do it again. Your failure to claim means they face no risk or loss, so they will continue to abuse you. I've seen this over and over again. It is the bully syndrome. They will continue to bully you until you stand up to them properly and effectively. Your failure to claim makes you complicit in their wrongdoing. This is another whole level that people don't get. When a police officer knows that his fellow police officer is involved in a criminal activity and does not report it, he becomes an accessory to that crime. All of his authority, all of his moral and lawful authority goes right out the window because now he's an accessory to a crime and has not taken action to prevent it. And there are instances of police officers speaking out ultimately, and again, they become a whistleblower within their, brotherhood, etc., and they have problems at work because of it. And guess what? The only person who's unhappy with a whistleblower bringing truth to light is a criminal. Somebody who's benefiting from the truth not being told. And so when the truth teller, the whistleblower, is not protected and anybody abusing that whistleblower is not abused, that means the superiors are happy with the abuse of that individual and are unhappy with the fact that they told the truth. And it's a top-down issue again. From top down, top needs to be cleaned out. They need to enforce the law. They need to protect whistleblowers and not be complicit in the crimes that are going on within your organizations. Is this a rose-colored glasses utopia? Absolutely. But guess what? Every small change leads to something. And there's a story, I believe it's Chile, who had a very corrupt police force. And somebody came in and redid the police force, and now it's a matter of pride that they do not take bribes, whereas it used to be a matter of course that they demanded bribes. And so if you offer a bribe, again, I believe it's Chile, it might be a different place down in South America. If you offer a bribe, you are rebuked and warned and potentially prosecuted depending on the nature of the offer, because the officers hold it as their moral and legal responsibility to uphold the law, and that has become the standard within their organization. And that can happen anywhere where there is the standard held by the individuals in that society, and as well as the leaders of that organization. And the only reason it hasn't changed is because the individuals in that society have not demanded it, and the leaders have not been replaced, or the leaders have not, upheld that standard as well. Your failure to complain and persist with your complaint through to the end is what they count on 98% of the time. They know 98% of their problems would go away because you're not going to complain about it, or you're going to give it up the first time you hear no, or the first time you lose in court and choose not to appeal. They know that 98% of their problems are gone. So they can ignore everybody because 98% of those people will go away, and then they only have to deal with 2%. All right? Your failure to understand basic court process is what they count on 100% of the time. They know you don't know about court. They know you don't know about procedure. They know you don't know about the law and the court game that they're playing. So they know even if you have everything proper, you have a proper claim, you have proper evidence, you'll lose in the court process. And that's part of what Su Wrongdoers is about, is to take away that that lack of process and procedure and proper court from their confidence, because they know people are coming in who know what they're doing. What are you doing that is really important compared to this? This is a question of, why should I do this? Well, I joke about it. Well, I wasn't really doing anything in my life that was, terribly important or terribly exciting, so I guess this is it. So am I thrilled about it? Am I excited about it? Not really, but at times, yeah, it's an empowering thing to do, and it's the right thing to do as far as I'm concerned. And I think it's an important thing to do. Am I responsible for society being better? No, but I can play my part and do my bit, and you can choose to do that too. And everybody in their own way, in their own time, whatever. So why does it work? Well, every officer is bound by ethical codes. Every officer is bound by acts that created the office they claim to represent. Every officer is bound by codes, rules, regulations, policies, and constitutions. Every officer is bound by oaths. We're not sure which oaths, or maybe no oath. Every officer is required to be bonded, which puts it into the commercial realm, which is where you get your compensation from. And they violate almost all of the above. That's why it works. You have the opportunity to find breaches of every one of these in many cases, or multiples of them in many cases. You only need one in order to have a complaint and a claim. And there's no shortage of opportunities for complaints and claims. How can we help? Well, we can help you learn the big picture. Again, many people that I deal with are so foreign to the world of law and legal process and courts. Again, it's overwhelming, it's scary, etc. And we can help put things into perspective. We can help give you an overview, a bigger picture of where you are in the process and what the process generally is, in order to not have it be so scary and not have it be so confusing. And then we can help you learn the strategies in order to be most effective in the process that you're involved in. We can help you learn the rules. The rules are largely written down in your court acts, rules, regulations, constitutions, etc. And common law, if you're in a common law jurisdiction, is unwritten. It's about principles. Do you know what those principles are? And if you look at the acts, the rules, regulations, those are written rules, acts, legislation that is an expression of the unwritten law of common law. So you will find that the common law is reflected in the written rules, regulations, and acts, etc. And so you can point to them and say, this is an expression of the principle at common law. So understanding the principles is key. Help you understand and even the odds. You have no chance against professionals in their venue if you don't understand the basic process and the basic strategies. We're experienced lay litigants. We're speaking common sense, plain English to you. We're not talking legalese, and helping you understand, again, the context, how to behave in court, how to ask questions in court, etc. and the processes that are available to you. Most of what we're covering is tested and applied court process. Not all of it. Some of it is leading edge. I hate to use that term, but it's better than bleeding edge. And most of it is what's there available for you. Again, what we want to make available is to help you go do it on your own. The information is available. Most people don't know how to access it. Most people don't understand it. We help you get to the point of accessing it and understanding it, and then you can do it on your own. We can also help in some ways with more detailed work, but the main thing is those first two steps. So reality check. It's not all sweetness and light. It is an uphill battle, and there will be people who don't win. Most of the time, it's poor application, lack of follow-through. And not winning doesn't mean you lost. It just means you have to go to the next step in order to challenge what happened in the not win. There are many cases who are lost at the provincial court level, confirmed lost at the Supreme Court level, confirmed lost at the appeal court level, and won at the Supreme Court level, all BC and Canada courts for those titles. So, politically charged issues, you're not going to win at the lower courts. Expect to lose if you're in their system. And can you win inside their system? Absolutely you can. Can you win at common law? Absolutely. I would say probably 99% of the time, probably. And that's why they don't want to access the common law courts. You may end up with legal costs against you. And if you do, the argument is you're a layperson. Those legal costs in the legal fee schedules are not to be used against the laypersons or laymen. They are for lawyers. When a lawyer is involved in a suit with a lawyer, that's how the lawyers get paid. And it's unfair to issue fees, legal costs, against a layman who is trying to stand up for their rights, defend themselves against the system, etc., and then be punished for losing their case with legal costs. It's a complete corruption, and it's used as an additional abuse tool to cause people to drop their suits because they might, if they lose, they might get legal costs. Again, it's just another threat and manipulation tactic. You may get harassed by CRA doing more things to you or police doing things to you. Unfortunately, that is a possibility depending on your situation. But the more professional, respectful, and well prepared you are, the more serious you are, the more they recognize that if they harass you even more, you're just going to report that. So, again, you reporting them is your protection. It does take time and energy, and you have to make sure that you are prepared for the time and energy required. You do have the law on your side. You have the law. It's there. It's clear. It's concise. It's precise. The principles, and in many cases, even the written law. And it's a matter of you using that to hold them to account. You will have to persist and execute well. Again, the number one thing I see with people is they don't follow through and poor execution. And part of the Su Wrongdoers is to try and assist with the persistence, to help people do that persistent work, and also make sure what they're executing is executed well. Now, some resources, the same resources on this particular page. There's a few more on the next one with regards to private person. There are courses there which are foundational to understanding how the court system works, how to communicate with the courts, and also how to make your complaints and claims. That's what courses 1, 2, and 3 are about. There's many webinars under the training tab. Encourage you to check them out. So being focused on principles. That's the main idea with private person and Su Wrongdoers, is staying focused on principles as much as possible. Not getting dragged into the detail, minutiae, gray area interpretation stuff. Principles are principles. Legal maxims are considered to be final absolute truths. And you got to make sure if you're using legal maxims, you use the legal maxim for the circumstances and situation you're involved in, and not use a commercial legal maxim in a common law situation, and vice versa, because there are legal maxims for each type of law. Don't mix and match. Well understood circumstances. So you need to have a good grasp on what you're facing. Too many times I've had people tell me their story, and then I look at their paperwork and I go, that's not what's going on here. And you need to get a good grasp of what the paperwork actually is, says, does, and therefore you have an idea of how to properly respond to it. You need to have good strategic actions, not just throw mud at the wall or try anything coming down the pike, because it will not only look bad, it weakens your position, because you obviously don't know what you're doing, so you're willing to try anything. So having a plan, sticking to it, strategically speaking, again, is important. Proper implementation is key. Most people, again, who have a chance lose because they haven't properly implemented. And I think those are the main steps to really, getting a win, getting your best chance for it. Now, some resources. Just go and Google search. Everybody knows what Google is. Go Google search free legal services in, and then put your local city or jurisdiction. Okay? You'll come up with all sorts of links which are of very good use to you. And this is one of the things that is planned with Su Wrongdoers, is to, again, go out and start utilizing these resources. Too many amateurs guessing and by golly doing stuff, and there are legal services available that may be of some use for research or input or support or something like that. And Google search the phrase "sue them in their personal capacity." There's a number of links which I came up with as a result of that, and I'm going to show a couple of them in a moment. That are of interest. So find a term and search it. You'll come up with all sorts of stuff. This is one of the links that I came up with when I typed in "sue them in their personal capacity." It's a U.S. Department of Justice document. You mean I can be sued? An overview of defending federal employees in individual capacity civil suits. Individual capacity civil suits is another way of saying I'm suing the man in his private capacity, or I'm suing the private person in his private capacity. I'm not suing the officer in his office. And this is where you'll also see on lawsuits in his official and personal capacity. That's another way of saying it. So here's an article from the Department of Justice informing federal employees, yes, you can be sued. I haven't read it yet because I just found it this morning when I was doing final prep. So I think that's great. And this other one, North Carolina Supreme Court says you must explicitly sue public official or government employees in their individual capacity in order to avoid sovereign or governmental immunity defenses. So here they are saying, go ahead, sue them privately. Because if you sue them as an officer, they may claim that they have sovereign immunity or governmental immunity. And again, they may have that, but it's only in certain circumstances. And they lose that immunity as soon as they've done something unlawful. And that has been abused for years. They've been using government and sovereign immunity protection for officers who have acted illegally and unlawfully, as you can't sue them. And finally, somebody successfully challenged that in the States. And, absolutely. Bottom line, doesn't matter who you are. If it's illegal, if it's unlawful, and you did it, you're subject to lawful suit. And I don't care who you are, in what capacity you claim protection of, you're suable. Absolutely. So what agencies or NGOs, non-government organizations, exist in your area to help you prosecute government and other cases? This is not about starting a business with Su Wrongdoers. This is about helping you understand what you can do and helping you access the tools and providing some coaching in order to be as successful as possible through the process. Go and use whoever, whatever is your local resource in order to facilitate the process for yourself. And that's just a link to an article here. Newsflash. I tell you, this just came out yesterday. Phony cops scam money from tourists in Vancouver. This is CBC News. This is the website. Guess what? Now you have lawful reason to demand from any police officer 2 pieces of ID from him before you even engage in conversation with them. Because in the public sphere, somebody's going around and pretending to be a cop, showing a fake badge. And you're trying to just protect yourself. You might even want to carry a copy of this article with you. By the way, the links associated with these things that I'm showing will be available for you to connect with in the replay as well. So, like when somebody comes and says, I'm a so-and-so, I'm a CRA agent. Great, where's your ID? Well, here's my business card. No, where's your ID, your badge? Okay, great, now where's your driver's license? Because when I was, I guess it was about a little over 10 years ago, there was somebody impersonating CRA officers going knocking on doors. And I don't remember what they were doing, but they were impersonating CRA officers. And so it became the perfect excuse to demand 2 pieces of ID, which is standard what you should do from anybody claiming authority. First, I need to see your badge or your official ID, and now I need to see your driver's license to make sure the names match and you really are who you say you are. Okay, perfectly legitimate. So you go and ask for 2 pieces of ID, and they, go ape on you or something. Guess what you got? You have a suit on your hands. So I just wanted to throw that up there because this just happened, and I think it's really interesting, and I think it's a wonderful lawful excuse to demand 2 pieces of ID from any official. And so I would print that out if I were you. Sue Wrongdoers, it is time for accountability, but it's up to you. Your mission, should you choose to accept it, is to get ready and know the law. Again, Su Wrongdoers is about trying to simplify that process so you're not spending all your life studying law. Again, the principles are pretty basic. And get set on how to complain. Administrative complaints, report them to their superiors all the way up the chain of command, get them investigated internally, get black marks on their record, get them to lose their license, get them, etc. So, there was an article recently about some lawyer who scammed some people, and somebody complained about this lawyer, the fact that they had checked with the Law Society about this lawyer's record, and the Law Society did not inform them that this lawyer had multiple complaints against him already. And so this individual was complaining that the Law Society was partially liable because they did not inform them that this individual lawyer was already, stacked up with complaints. So again, there's a complaint against the Law Society. So there you go, and go and how to claim dollars. Now again, if you have a good claim and it's well presented and you use the courts properly, you have a great chance of getting paid compensation for the wrongs you were submitted to. So you can do it. It is possible. There are payouts, but you have to do the work. Could you go and get a lawyer to do it? Absolutely. But guess what? The lawyer is going to be best helped, and your costs will be far less if you do a lot of the legwork, because the lawyers that I've dealt with don't do a lot of the work. They're trying to minimize the process. They're more likely to tell you to flush it if they don't see any money in it for them, and they're more likely to do all sorts of things that are not beneficial to you. So holding your lawyer's feet to the fire with regards to process, because you understand what he should be doing and you've gathered the evidence, is great. I had a friend of mine charged with a very serious criminal offense many years ago, and I said, is your lawyer doing this? Is he doing that? Is he doing this? Is he doing that? No, I don't know. I said, well, find out. And he went and found out that the lawyer wasn't doing much of any of it. And I said, well, this is what you need to have. This is what the charge is, and this is the evidence they have, and this is what you need to produce to counter their evidence. If you say that this is not true what they're saying, you need to produce evidence to the contrary. He went and dug up the evidence to the contrary, provided it to that lawyer, and that individual got off the charges that they were facing at that particular time, in part, large part, because the key piece of evidence that they were going on was proven incorrect based on the evidence my friend went and got, that his lawyer wasn't even, asking about, seeking about, looking for. And this lawyer, I was called as a witness, and this lawyer actually asked me to lie on the stand in order to be this guy's alibi. And I didn't know it at the time, but that's a criminal offense. Counseling a witness to, to do that. It's like I was pretty appalled at the time, but I didn't know it was an offense. And these guys, some of them are just sad. So invite all of your friends. Let people know about this. If you're not going to do anything, but you think this is a good idea, the absolute least you can do is spread the word. And those who are interested will pursue it, and those who won't, don't. And that's all good. So there is a Facebook page, there's a Twitter, there's YouTube, there's a Google+. There's hardly anything on it right now because guess what? We haven't started yet. October 1st it officially opens and we'll get going. But if you like what you hear, if you think there's value in here, and you don't spread the word, So You have the tools at your disposal, and I really encourage you to participate in that way at least. So that's the presentation for right now, and I want to also just show you a couple of things with regards to the Google searches. So here's a free legal services in Vancouver, BC. It gives a list of all the different services that are out there, etc. So again, just do the same thing in your jurisdiction. Here's the sue them in your personal capacity, in their personal capacity, excuse me. Who you can sue, Jailhouse Lawyer's Handbook. That's actually very good. Have a copy of that, so that's a good thing to pick up. There's lots of information about doing this. I'm just trying to streamline it and simplify it as much as possible for myself, and then make that available to others. So, suing your federal government for civil rights violations. There's a tip. And individual capacity, Wikipedia. In law, individual capacity is a term of art. Term of art. That's a lovely, lovely phrase. It means that when you're, acting, painting, drawing, whatever, related to a particular discipline, in this case law, it means referring to one's status as a natural person. What's a natural person? It's a man at common law. It's also a man in civil law. Private person is the correct term for a man at common law and only common law. It only exists at common law, a private person. Distinct from any other role. So you can find good definitions within Wikipedia as well. Oh, and here's that article. You mean I can be sued? An overview of defending federal employees in individual capacity lawsuits. When a process server arrives at their home, many federal employees are surprised to learn for the first time they can be personally sued for doing their jobs. Woohoo! Let's go teach a few federal and other government employees that they could be personally sued for doing their jobs. Okay? And it goes on from there. Lawyers Mutual. Don't know who they are. It's official. Here we are. They can be sued. Sue them in their individual capacity. And there's also these legal advice sites where people ask a question and lawyers give advice. You can go and ask a lawyer and get feedback and stuff like that. Use it as a research tool. Pass along what you learn. And so here's the question, and then there's a few answers, and you can see this guy's a lawyer. And lawyers do this in order to get business. If they answer your question, there's a possibility you'll follow up with them. So, those are just some of the tools that are useful to you. And here's the thing on the Nanaimo Council, where they passed the bylaw, and they got shamed back out of it. So Ezra Levant did a really good job on that. So you have a lot of tools available to you, and the Su Wrongdoers information is up and coming. So we're going to take questions and answers in a moment. I'm just going to wrap this up right now. Thank you for any of you who have to head out, go on. Have a great day, have a good week, and follow up with us next week. This will be up on the SueWrongdoers.com website as a replay for you to view, and spread the word. Those of you who wish to stay for a question and answer session, you're welcome to do so, and I'll check the question box now.